In this video, we're going to talk about the actual science of losing body fat. My name's Adam Bunnell. I'm an online fat loss professional, and I help men get to the leanest body fat percentage they've ever been. Men that have been stuck in fat loss plateaus, eating small amounts of calories and doing tons of cardio, get to the leanest body fat percentage they've ever been. I've helped dozens of guys in the past get to the leanest body fat percentage they've ever been using higher level forms of nutrition, metabolism manipulation, and hormonal control. So I specialize in something called metabolic priming, and it's quite literally helped dozens of my clients break fat loss plateaus by actually eating more food and losing body fat. But in this video, I'm going to actually give you guys the actual science of losing body fat. So this is a two-step process: fat oxidation and fat mobilization. And at the end of the video, I'm going to explain exactly how you can actually trigger them both and how to utilize both fat oxidation and mobilization in a specific term. And then we can even talk about certain supplementations for that as well. So fat oxidation and fat mobilization. So fat mobilization, and the thing is, calories in versus calories out is only half the equation. There are certain things that have to happen within the body for you to actually burn body fat. And this is something that most people, most coaches don't actually know or even talk about, right? Losing body fat actually happens within the nervous system. More specifically, the sympathetic nervous system, which tells your body to put your body into a certain stress mode and release adrenaline and epinephrine to mobilize fatty acid cells into the bloodstream. More specifically, it tells fat cells to release triglycerides into the bloodstream to be used as energy, also known as fat burning. So the first step of the process of losing fat is mobilizing the fat, right? So this step is called lipolysis, and it is the first step of losing body fat. So basically, this is triggered by epinephrine to, one, tell the fatty acid cell when it is in times of stress or hunger to release triglycerides in the form of energy. So think about the fatty acid cell as a kind of a backbone within in the cell, right? So it actually needs to be broken off to actually be oxidized, because it could be, one, you could do whatever you want and not be able to actually oxidize body fat that's not even been mobilized. And another terms of things, you could also mobilize body fat and not actually oxidize it. So we're going to talk about, both. So epinephrine, adrenaline, your nervous system controls the actual mobilization of body fat, right? So this happens when the body is in a state of stress, fasted state of low energy, when blood glucose levels are very low, right? So it tells the triglycerides to be released into the bloodstream, and so the body has the actual energy to burn as body fat. But the thing is that why these cells of triglycerides are in your bloodstream and you don't burn them, they go back into the actual fatty acid cell and get stored back again. So it's important to not only mobilize them, but to also oxidize them. So fat oxidation is the actual process that the fat cell actually is utilized in the mitochondria as energy. So oxidation is the process of induced CO2 that allows the cells to be burned inside of the mitochondria, right? So to kind of preface, we have to, one, mobilize the body fat from the fatty acid chains and actually put it into the bloodstream, and then we have to utilize it in that fat oxidation process to be put into the mitochondria and burned as energy. So how specifically do we activate both of these, right? So when the sympathetic nervous system releases stress signals in the form of epinephrine, how do we induce adrenaline epinephrine, or stage one of the fat loss burning process? So in a fasted state, you are in a state of low glucose levels, and more fat will be mobilized when you are stressed, when you are in a state of needing more fuel, needing more energy. This doesn't mean that I'm advocating actually fasting, right? What I'm saying is that to be mobilized as body fat, the body needs to have a need of energy, need of extra fuel, need an extra sense of something to burn. So how specifically do we, one, increase levels of epinephrine, increase the levels of adrenaline in a fasted state? One is high intensity training, right? To the point where you put the body in a high amount of stress and you burn more glucose in a shorter amount of time in your weight training sessions. Not only that, but even 24 hours after you do high intensity training, you continue to burn more fat in the form of oxidation. So when you're in a high level of training, you are, one, putting the body in a stressful mode, it's releasing epinephrine, it's releasing adrenaline, and you are mobilizing body fat by one, decreasing the level of blood glucose in your body by burning that faster, right? So now we are triggering the effect of actually mobilizing body fat in the form of training. You don't burn much calories in the form of calories when in your weight training sessions. You burn like 200 to 300 calories within your weight training sessions. But what they do is help, one, build muscle tissue, which is extremely important when you come from a metabolic perspective and actually being able to intake more calories and burn more calories at rest in the form of NEAT, non-energy activity thermogenesis, because muscle tissue is very highly metabolic and takes a lot of calories to actually sustain. But you're also mobilizing body fat when you are strength training, right? By releasing epinephrine and releasing adrenaline. So even after you're done working out, you can continue to actually oxidize fat for up to 24 hours. But the thing is, the opposite effect happens when you do low intensity cardio, where you burn less during the workout, but you burn more glucose and raise your BMR after that low intensity cardio. So this comes to the question, does fasted workouts matter? Is fasted workouts, am I, pushing fasted workouts on people? Absolutely not. Because one, you need to be able to build good muscle tissue and supply the body with energy to push your body to grow new muscle tissue. Because we can't stray away from the fact that we need muscle tissue to have a high metabolic rate. So with that being said, having a high intensity training session where you're pushing your body, increasing muscle tissue, but also burning glycogen and putting the body into a fat mobilization state, then we can do something like a low intensity cardio to actually oxidize it, right? Because oxidation of body fat occurs more specifically in a low intensity state, right? So what are some certain supplements in particular that help with, I guess, the induced of epinephrine and induced adrenaline? One is shivering, right? So you probably heard of people doing the cold plunges and stuff, or like cold showers whenever. And that's great. Absolutely, that is going to induce epinephrine. It's going to induce adrenaline in the form of shivering. But what will it not do? It's not going to actually oxidize it, right? So you need two steps of the process. You need an A and an AB to actually burn body fat, right? So another supplement that's great with fat oxidation is L-carnitine. It helps breathe heavier. So think about when you breathe, you're inducing or breathing out CO2 levels, which is fat oxidation. And then another one that is even more common is caffeine, right? So I don't promote caffeine. If you haven't taken caffeine before, I don't promote you doing it. But the truth of the fact is that, one, taking caffeine before your workout, it spikes adrenaline, spikes epinephrine, and gives you great workouts, right? And so quite particularly, caffeine is a great stimulus to use as fat mobilization, right? So an actual thing, something that will actually help in actual fat oxidation and increasing the GLP-1 pathways is actual protein. So actual GLP-1 in the body is super important in mitigating hunger levels. You probably heard of Ozempic, the over-the-counter GLP-1 pathways. Well, GLP-1 is certain specific for actually mitigating hunger patterns, but also it can trigger more fat oxidation. So where can you get a natural form of GLP-1? Protein. So getting the correct protein amount in the form of what you actually need person to person can help with actually fat oxidation, because if you think about it, one, protein has a higher thermic effect, which means 30% of the protein you eat gets broken down into calorie conversion digestion process. So having a higher protein intake, more specific to what you need, will help with more fat oxidation because it increases GLP-1 pathways, but also increases the thermic effect of food, right? So another way that you can stay away from, one, mobilizing more body fat and utilizing more body fat to burn, is switching up your training session. So a lot of guys who come to me have been doing the exact same training sessions for years and years on end, and we switch over the training sessions. And if you think about it, one, when you switch over a new training session, or let's say, for instance, that you've been doing the same training session for a while, your body's going to adapt to it, and you're not going to get the same stimulus of epinephrine and adrenaline in your workouts as you would if you got a brand new workout and you're trying something brand new. That's specifically why I create my clients' programs on a 6-week meso-split program. So we're constantly switching those up, we're constantly surprising their body, and we're constantly putting their body in a more higher induced form of epinephrine and adrenaline. So what does this look like for my clients specifically? So we've talked about one, fat oxidation, fat mobilization, certain things that you can actually do to trigger both of them, but what does it look like particularly for both of my clients? So the first thing that you need to know about every single one of my clients is they're all giving a customized nutrition protocol, right? At the end of the day, none of this matters if you're well overeating on food or you're undereating on food as well. And there's two specific reasons. If you're overeating on food, it doesn't matter because one, you're not going to put the body into enough fasted state during your workout where it's going to trigger fat mobilization. On the other ends of things, if you are undereating, and this is where it comes into very clear terms in the people that I work with. If you are undereating to the point where the body's not getting enough correct energy to reduce inflammation, reduce oxidative stress, and reduce adrenal fatigue, all the cellular activity in your body is now dealing with that, right? All the cellular activity in your body is now dealing with the inflammation, the blood sugar levels that are out of control, the adrenal fatigue, and now it has less cellular activity to do what we're actually trying to do, which is burn body fat. So cellular activity in your body only has so much energy, to actually make up, right? So people who get stuck in fat loss plateaus, get the gut, get very inflamed doing tons of cardio, and they get stuck in weight, their cellular activity is so actively trying to reduce what's going on that it actually can't lose body fat, and then it diminishes your BMR. And we can go into very great depth about the diminishing and the downregulation of your metabolism in many of my other videos. But quite specifically, you need a correct nutrition program for this process to actually work. One, with a protein intake with a higher thermic effect, a fat goal to actually regulate hormone levels in T3 and T4, because your thyroid in this process plays a very important role in fat mobilization and making sure that the body has actually enough to actually burn. Your thyroid controls your entire metabolism, and so in the fat oxidation process, your thyroid is extremely important. Even within my data and meta-analysis, there have been certain people that have well underate, and we were able to actually get them to eat more, and many of my clients are down 15, 20 pounds eating more food, because you give the body more energy to actually reduce fatigue, reduce adrenal fatigue, reduce a lot of inflammation in their body, and now their body has a lot more cellular activity to actually reduce body fat, right? So the number one and most important thing is that you actually get a correct nutrition program for you. So the second one is, how do we actually mobilize body fat and actually how we burn body fat, right? So most of my clients are on two specific plans. Like I said, this doesn't even matter as long as we get the nutrition part figured out. It is 99% of what's going on, and 99% of the progress they're made is with their nutrition and dialing everything into the gram. If you've been with a trainer in the past that gives you a 30%, 40%, 30% profile, that's not good enough. You actually need what you need to the gram, and you actually need updates every single week based upon the progress you're making, because your macronutrient profile will change every single week based upon the progress you're making. If you're eating the exact same macronutrients you are when you started losing the 20 pounds and now you're 20 pounds down, you're eating the same amount of food, that doesn't make much sense. Or, even if you're eating, you gotta be able to update this weekly based upon the progress you're making. That only makes sense if, because to be honest, most people who try keto, carnivore, whatever these one-size-fits-all diets, there's just no updating them. And yes, you'll lose 20, 30 pounds because you went from doing absolutely nothing to doing something, but you need something a little bit more tailored to you if you actually want to take this further step. But going into the actual fat mobilization and fat oxidation process, the first thing I have with my clients is I make sure to, one, do 6-week meso-splits programs to constantly make sure we're increasing epinephrine and making sure we're inducing adrenaline to actually mobilize body fat, right? The second thing we do is we utilize steps in the form of low-intensity cardio. So we talked about earlier how high-intensity cardio in the form of training burns glucose levels, puts the body in a fasted state faster, but after helps the body with oxidation even up to 24 hours after they're done lifting. Low-intensity cardio has the opposite effect. It helps with oxidation of body fat during you're doing it, and then afterwards it helps burn more glucose. So what we do is we do steps, right? High intensity cardio and steps, right? So one, we can put the body into a fat mobilization process, into a depleted state, and then we can work on low intensity cardio to actually oxidize more body fat. And that is the science behind why all of my guys, dozens and dozens of my guys, are one, eating more food than they ever have, getting lean, building muscle, and losing body fat, but how they're also making the most amazing progress on the face of the internet, because we utilize actual science-based tools to give them what they need to get lean, build muscle tissue, increase hormone levels, optimize metabolism, and then really nail down the fat mobilization and the fat oxidation process. So if you guys like this video, like, comment, subscribe. If you are stuck right now in the fat loss plateau, you're under 2,000 calories, you've been tons of cardio, your digestion is off, you've got the inflamed gut, there is going to be a link down below for you to sign up. And I want you to take this seriously. You've waited long enough. There's going to be a link down below where we can kind of sit down and actually talk face to face, me and you. We'll break down where you're at, where you're looking to get, and we'll see what's actually stopping to get you there. Because if you're wanting to get in the best shape of your life, feel better for longevity, health, family, whatever it may be, the longer you wait on actually seeing that progress. So I like working with action takers, right? So I'd love to see you on the call. There's going to be a link down below. We can kind of talk about what's stopping you from getting to where you want to get. And if I'm 1,000% confident that it is something that I can help, I will build you some higher level strategy, show you what it look like to partner up, and I'll build you a program based upon actual science, actual KPIs and metrics about what you need to optimize your health, optimize your hormone levels, and get you to the leanest body fat percentage you've ever been using actual science. So like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.